good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are right now. It is lovely to have you join this family conference tonight or today, or depending on your time zone. I'm in Australia. It is 5 p.m. here for me in Brisbane. I know it is different time around Australia, and it is certainly different time depending on where you are joining us. You might be joining from the conference room, or you might be on Facebook, or you might be on YouTube as well. So welcome to join us for this multilingual family conference. I'm very pleased to have you here, and I hope that it will be a very useful conference for you, for your family. I hope to answer all your questions that you may have, so please ask your questions during the conference, because it is absolutely lovely to have you here with me for this conference. Very good. So whichever language you speak, you are welcome here. You can ask the transcription for to make it more to make it easier to understand. But whichever language you speak, you are welcome here. If you need the translation, please do not hesitate to ask for the translation as well. You can just send me an email and I will be very happy to send you the replay and the translation as well. So do not hesitate. Any language is absolutely okay and welcome. Very good. It is really lovely. I'm really excited for this conference tonight, and I hope that you have lots of questions. So you will see this little picture on the screen at time. So this is a good time to ask your questions, but anytime type your question. Probably I will wait until I'm getting to that point to pause and take the time to respond. But the point is really to answer every question that you may have. So if you're here today, it is likely that you are trying to raise your children in more than one language. Maybe you're trying to transmit to your child your own birth language from your country. Maybe you live in a different country and you're trying to keep the language going and the culture as well. Or maybe you're trying to share with your child a language that you like, but you're not native in that language, and that's fine as well. You are absolutely welcome here. Or maybe you are expecting a child and you really have lots of questions about how you're going to do it, and you will like your answers, your questions answered tonight. Or maybe you have children and maybe they're growing, and maybe at the beginning it was easy to raise your children when they were little in more than one languages, but as they're growing up and they get to primary school and then they get to secondary school and things start to get a little bit difficult, and maybe you are wondering if your children are really engaging in all these languages, and maybe you have lots of questions and doubts and concern. So if this is your case, please absolutely ask your questions here tonight. That will be really, really good. All right, so let's get started. And we're going to start with the most important question, which is why? Why raising your child in multiple languages? And I really encourage you right now to actually be interactive and maybe grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and try to write what is your why. Why do you think it is important for you to raise your child in more than one language? It's very important to know your why, because it will absolutely help you be successful in your journey. Raising a child in more than one language is not just a couple of weeks or a couple of months of effort. It is a 0 to 18 years of age type of experience. So knowing your why is very important. I encourage you, grab a pen, start to write what is your why. What is it that you want to raise your child in multiple languages? I'm going to say multilingual or multiple languages. 2 is enough. If it is bilingual and this is 2 languages, please do not feel offended or less of a multilingual. So just trying to get a generic term for that. So please try to think of why you want your child or your children to be multilingual or bilingual. Okay, maybe you're thinking this is great in terms of vocabulary development. Maybe you're thinking that if they speak more than one languages, they will have an extensive vocabulary in all these languages. And this is correct, knowing though that depending on the age of the child, there will be some differences to cater for in that vocabulary section. Maybe you think that you want to increase your child's social abilities, and you know that being bilingual or multilingual actually gives people more empathy. And this is something that you would really like for your child, to create more empathy, to make to raise a child that grow in compassion and empathy is something that is important to you. Or maybe you like thinking outside of the box, and you also value the fact that speaking more than one language will give your child a more flexible thinking, a more creative thinking. And this is something that you value, and you think this is important, and you want that for your child, for your children. And simply, maybe you're thinking being multilingual is fantastic for academic performance and engagement. And maybe this is what you are valuing, and this is why you would like your child to speak more than one language. Whichever is one of these responses is not better or worse than another, but you might be more inclined to one than another, maybe because this is your reality as someone who can speak more than one language as well. And this is absolutely fine. If this is your value as a person, as a parent, it is important to transmit these values to your child. So very good for that. But let's go a little bit deeper. And as I'm talking about all this why, or all this reason why to raise a child in more than one language, continue the exercise of writing why it is important for you as a parent to raise your child in 2 or more languages. Okay, this is for you. This is not for me that you're doing this exercise. The first aspect is to develop higher cognitive skills. And all studies show that our multilingual children have a higher brain executive function than monolingual ones. And that is a reality. There's a lot of tests all around the world that have been made when we compare monolingual children versus bilingual ones or multilingual ones. We can observe as well on our multiple language learners that they have a higher memory retention, and they are as well better at problem solving. This is a very, very good benefit, obviously. In terms of all the different subjects at school, we can see that these children are more creative because the exposure to multiple languages is also an exposure to multiple cultures and multiple mindsets, which is a way to think, which is why they have higher creative thinking abilities, just because they are used to jump from a mindset to another. And this is why it gives them a cognitive flexibility that is greater than monolingual. So it is easier for them to learn something new because they have better strategies to do that. They're already always doing it. So their brain is very plastic in that regard. In the class, it is actually very easy to make the difference between monolingual children and bilingual ones, because the bilingual ones will be less distracted and more focused on the task. They have a longer attention span than monolingual child. So that is definitely something that is a very, very strong benefit for you to want to raise your child in more than one language. Now, another side of multilingualism is actually the social abilities that it develops. And that is something that is really, really important as well. We're more talking about the soft skills here. And this is really important. Why? Because schools are usually not the greatest place to learn the soft skills. This is something that is not embedded in the curriculum. Some schools are working on it, but it is still something that is to work on, and our children are kind of left themselves to learn all these soft skills of social relationships. And being multilingual actually make them much more open-minded and resilient to differences than monolingual children. For example, being multilingual make them better adjusted to changes in the environment, better resilient. So we can think of a crisis such as the one we are still a little bit on with the COVID crisis and the, everything, the lockdowns and everything that went around it. It was a massive change for everybody. And our multilingual were a bit better equipped to deal with the change because they have a greater resilience and they have a greater facility to adapt than people who only have one language. Of course, we can easily understand that being multilingual makes you more tolerant to cultural differences because you are used to different cultures, used to different languages, used to different ethnicity. So you are much more tolerant to cultural differences. There's much less racism, for example, but not only. These children have a way to think outside of the box and to approach unfamiliar situation with a much more open mind to it, including new people as well. That makes them better at understanding someone else's point of view than a monolingual child, because they are less susceptible to egocentric bias than another child. And because of all of this, our multilingual children are usually better at communicating than others because they have so many strategies and so many ways to say something that they have this flexibility to communicate in a way that is going to be efficient and empathetic to others. So that could be some of the reason why you're thinking you want to raise your child in multiple languages. As I'm speaking, please continue to write on your piece of paper what is resonating with you. And maybe you're more on a logical, analytical skill, or maybe you're more in the emotional, social type of abilities, depending on the person that you are and the values that you want to embed to your child. And maybe both are resonating with you. There's no wrong or right or best or worse. Everything is valuable because all these benefits are actually working for all the children. So it's just which one is resonating a bit more with you. And then last but not least, it is absolutely incredible to know that growing up multilingual actually protects the brain against cognitive decay and against all the cognitive decline and disease that you can encounter, such as dementia or Alzheimer or all these type of things. Your brain stays in a much better health than the brain of a monolingual. Actually, if we were to observe the brain of a monolingual person and a bilingual person, you would see difference. The brain looks different and function differently. And as we grow old and we age and we start to lose memory and everything, it is a very strong benefit to be bilingual or multilingual. So much better mental and intellectual health for our multilingual children, which is sometimes something that we don't think as a parent, and we have a little child and we don't think that one day they'll be 86 or 96 or 106 and that they will be in a nursery home maybe, or maybe they won't even need to be in a nursery home, but being bilingual will protect their brain, which is a wonderful gift to give to your children. Okay, at this point, if there's any question, that is a good time to interrupt. So you can jump in the chat, you can ask me a question. If you're on Facebook, I'm not sure I can see your questions though, so I apologize. It's a little bit more difficult for me, but if this is the case, type your question anywhere and I will make sure I will answer after the conference. So even if you type now the question in the Facebook chat or in the YouTube comment, I will make sure I return to you and I will give you a response for your questions. So do not hesitate to comment, even if you are not in the conference room today with us. Very good. Before we go any further, I would really like to define what is multilingualism, because there's a lot of false beliefs around it. And I often meet parents who think that children are not bilingual. And it's like, oh, I wish they would be, but don't do it properly. I don't have support, or yeah, I do speak my language with my child. And yes, they do understand, and they do speak a little bit, but not very much. And that creates a lot of false belief and a lot of concern on the parents. And sometimes parents feel that they are failing their children and they're not helping them. And this is simply not true. So I would really, really like to explain what is the definition of multilingualism. And I hope that it will bring comfort and reassurance to many, many parents today. So what is multilingualism or bilingualism? Very easy. It is the use of 2 or more languages on a regular basis. Okay. What it is not is an expert level of fluency at equal level between all the languages. That's not what you would expect. Actually, more often, you would accept that languages are at a different level, and that's fine, okay? Being bilingual means using 2 or more languages on a regular basis. And maybe that's just around the Christmas table when grandma and grandpa are coming to spend Christmas with you, and they do speak in their language, and this is when your child speaks that language. That is regular. This is every Christmas, that is regular. Once a year, that is regular. Your child is bilingual. If you're using your language just a little bit in a while, this is regular, and your child is using it, your child is also bilingual. Okay, I hope you reassure a lot of you, because I can't talk enough of the parents that come and they think that their child is not bilingual, but they would like, but they feel that they're not doing it properly. So I hope this is a good definition. Now, there's different ways to actually be bilingual, and that's something that I'd like to show you a little bit. The bilingualism can be simultaneous, which is at the same time, or it can be sequential, one language, then another in the time. So let's observe a little bit. Okay, so being a simultaneous bilingual, what is it? It is to speak 2 or more languages at the same time. For example, you and your partner both speak a different language than each other. Mom speaks a language, dad speaks another language, and you both speak your own language to the child. We call that one person, one language strategy, OPO. This is not the only method, but this is a method that is widely used among parents who both speak a different language. So there is mom's language and dad's language for the child, and there's this exposure at the same time. Or maybe both parents actually speak the same language, but they live in a country that speaks a different language. So the country spoken in the home is different than the language spoken around them. And we commonly call that a minority language at home. And this is also a way to learn 2 languages at once. Okay, that will be slightly different than a sequential bilingualism, which is when a child first learns a language and then learns another one later on. Okay, different options for that. Maybe you live in a bilingual country, such as Canada, for example. So you start with a language, and as the child goes to school, a second language appears. Or maybe your country is not bilingual, but you have bilingual schools or bilingual education options around you. So you speak your language, you teach your child your language, but you enroll them in a school or an educational institution that teach another language. So your child first learn a language and then they learn the school language a little bit later in life. Or maybe you create opportunity to expose your child to another language through maybe a nanny, an au pair, a babysitter, or grandparents, or friends, people around you that speak that language. So first your language, and then the language of this other person. Or maybe at some point during the child's childhood or teenage years, you have an experience of expatriation or immigration or work where you have to go and live in a different country. Your child has grown up speaking their language and they arrive to a different place and they need to learn another language. So all this is a way to learn a second language in a sequential bilingualism setting. Now, for some of you, maybe some language have been learned in a simultaneous manner and other languages happen in a sequential bilingualism setting. So if you speak maybe 3 or 4 or 5 languages, and maybe you've started with 2 at home, and then you've moved somewhere else and you've learned a 3rd or 4th or 5th language later in the child's childhood or teenage years. All of this can be combined. This is not, there's not a better way or not a good way to be bilingual. All of this is possible and can be combined as well. So it could be very interesting to have your questions here. Maybe you have questions about how you've been teaching your different languages to your child. Maybe you wonder, you know, what is better for your situation, depending on the languages. Maybe you have questions about speaking a language, maybe or as well writing and reading a language as well, but about school. Is a bilingual school better? All these questions, please feel free to write them down either in the chat of the conference room, or if you are on YouTube or Facebook, I will see the questions later. So do not hesitate to write them down and I will come back to you. It's just that I can't see them at the same time. I apologize for that. Just a little bit too much for my technical skills, but if you have questions, feel free to type them and I will make sure I will find them and answer a little bit later. Now, tonight, I would really like to talk about the what ifs, because I know that this is a lot of the questions that parents have. I've had these questions, although my specialty is to actually help implement multilingual programs for children. But as a parent, I've had these questions, and as a professional, I've met with countless parents who come with their questions. They usually don't have a safe place to ask these questions, or they think that everything's fine and they don't really want to talk with the grandparents or the family. They don't always ask for help, thinking, oh, well, okay, maybe I didn't do it properly, but I'm not going to really speak about it. And parents don't always realize that it is okay to ask these questions and to have good answers and good strategies to remedy to these doubts and concerns they may have. So very important to me today to talk about these what ifs. And the biggest what if is really, really dear to my heart, because it is, what if my child loses their language? Because this is a very strong question, right? Is it possible for my child to forget their native tongue? And the answer, unfortunately, is yes. It is absolutely possible to forget a language that you grew up with, even if you were very fluent in it, even if you were speaking this language with the nannies, with the aunties, with whatever, there is a real risk to lose a language if some conditions are not there to support this language. I've experienced that personally. I've seen that in several families around me in 20 plus years of career. So I know this is unfortunately something that may happen, and that is usually very, very heartbreaking for the family, very confusing, and even for the child somehow they a little bit wonder what's wrong with them. So what happens when a child doesn't learn how to read and write a language? it is possible that this language get lost because it's not anchored enough in the neurological side of the brain. And yes, they might have some words, they might have some phrase, but they might not be able to actually have enough connection to keep this language on a long-term basis. Or maybe the other language is considered of a lesser value than another one. For example, this is a language from a minority community, or maybe this is a language of the nanny, or maybe this is a language from a parent from when they were little, but they have no connection with that language anymore. And it is perceived as less important, less interesting to maintain. It is possible that this language disappear, especially if you live in a context that is quite monolingual. And I meet so often parents that say, well, we live in a country that speaks this language. It's more important for my child to learn this language. I'm not going to bother teaching them mine. And this language is considered of a lesser value. And then the child is not going to retain it because it's not perceived as important. Sometimes, especially if you are in a monolingual context, the educational institution or the social pressure will actually discourage you as parents to pursue teaching your child your own language. Or maybe your child will see the conflict between what they hear at school and what they hear at home, and they might lose interest and switch to the majority language instead of sticking to their own language. So this is a real risk, and there is strategies to adopt definitely to not lose your language. And it is important for parents to be prepared and to use the right strategies to actually continue to keep languages, because as we know, this is really so beneficial for our children. Another what if is, what if my child is isolated because of our family languages? And that can be the case in a place where the minority language is considered of a lesser value, or when we are in a monolingual setting where being bilingual feel a bit weird or different, and children sometimes feel the peer pressure and don't want to be different. They really want to keep, to stay in the crowd and not be too much the tall poppy syndrome, basically. So this is a risk sometimes, that children feel isolated, and if they are the only multilingual child in the school, they tend to kind of hide it, not really display it, and they may refuse to speak the language. They might actually respond in the majority language when you speak your language at home and everything. And that can also lead to a lot of heartache and difficulty and discouragement for you as parents. So once again, it is important to know about it and to adopt the right strategies to help your child and to help your family to thrive in all your languages and not feel isolated in them. Another what if that I hear from parents is, what if I teach my child wrong? And I get that as well from native speakers than non-native speakers. So from native speakers, sometimes parents are like, well, yes, I can speak my language, but I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to explain my language to my child. I'm taking it wrong. I don't know how to do it. It's better that I pretend to speak the majority language only and let's forget about it. Or sometimes parents feel that because they're not a native speaker, they are not the right person to teach their child this language as well. So they just give up and think, well, I really like speaking Spanish or Italian or Japanese, but I don't feel I'm equipped enough. I don't speak it enough to really transmit this language to my child. Once again, this is all false beliefs. There's no right way or wrong way, but definitely you need to find the right strategies and the right support to help you in sharing your languages with your child. And there's a lot of things that you can do to support you in that journey. And a big what if is, what if my child get confused between the different languages? And this question happens when the child starts to speak. And this is really cute because they go from a language to another. And this is just due to the development of their brain. There's different stages, and I teach about that as well at other conferences. But there's different ages and different strategies that need to be implemented for a child to learn the different languages. So it does appears at times that a child get confused between the different languages. It is actually absolutely normal. It is part of the normal development of the languages to code switch between a language and another. It is just due to the neurological development of the brain. So it is important to know that. It is important to know the different stages of development, linguistic development, and to adopt different strategies depending on the age of the child. If the child is between 0 and 6, you will have different strategies because the brain is developing a certain way. Between 6 and 12, the brain is developing a different way. It is important to use different strategies. And after 12, this is also different strategies. And this is very important to understand this. So you will help your child not to be confused between the different languages. It is often just a symptom. It's just often an appearance that they are confused. They are not confused. Just a tip, a child in the womb, a baby in the womb can make the difference between the different languages around them. When they're born, at birth, a child can hear the differences between all the different languages. So they are not confused at all. They might mix their languages, they might code switch. It's just a strategy to learn. It is absolutely not a sign that they're confused between their languages and that you should stop. I would say this is actually an encouragement for you to continue and keep going. All right. Time for more questions about all this what ifs. How about you share your what if? How about you share your doubts, concern about your situation, your child? Maybe your child is between 0 and 6, or maybe between 6 and 12, or maybe after 12, and you want to know about the strategies, or maybe you observe things that are a little bit of a concern for you and you're not sure what to do. So please feel free to ask your questions about it, and I'll be very, very pleased to respond to these questions and help you with your doubt and concern, and make sure that you're feeling confident and reassured that yes, you're doing a great job, and yes, that your child, when they turn 18, will be completely thriving in all their languages. All right, so just to finish, maybe where do I speak from? I give you all these tips and information, but you may be wondering, who am I to give you all these questions? So my name is Law. Well, first of all, I'm a mother of 2 multilingual children, and more recently, I'm a mother of a blended multilingual family as well, and 4 teenagers. So I can speak many languages, too many to really count them. I speak several languages with my children. When they were little, could speak 6 languages, but they were stronger in 3 of them, and I try to maintain these 3 languages across pretty much the 20 past years. I've lived in different continents, in different countries, so I've experienced multiple languages. But initially, I trained in linguistics, and my master was to teach in a special language. So I've worked with the European Council, and I created programs to help children learn in different languages. I've done that in Asia Pacific, and more recently in Australia as well. So I have observed many multilingual families, all sort of situations. Myself, I was a single parent for all these years, so it is possible as well to raise a child in multiple languages as just one parent. And at the professional level, as I said, developed several programs around the world to educate children or help educate children in multiple languages. recently been the head of a primary bilingual school, and I'm currently the foundation principal of a pre-K to 12 international college. So I meet a lot of parents who have a lot of questions and try to provide help and supports and encouragement for all these different situations and families who want to raise their children in more than one language. So thank you very much for attending today's conference. I really hope that you got something out of it and that it was beneficial for your family and that you got some good tips to help with this situation. So thank you very much for all of this. If you wish to continue a little bit further and keep digging in what is it that you can do in terms of strategies, in terms of support, in terms of network as well, to help you raise your child as thriving multilingual children up to the age of 18, I encourage you to book a 30-minute consultation with me. It's completely free. There's nothing attached. Just come around, ask your question. And to make it very easy, you can just tag the QR code here. If you are on your computer, you can grab your phone and use the QR code in front of you. Or you can go on the website and from there's a contact form. Ask you questions on the contact form. I will receive that as an email. And of course, you can follow on Facebook and have some tips and hints about how to thrive in your multilingualism as a family. And I really hope to see you there. So I really hope that it was a good conference for you, that you got a lot from it, and do not hesitate to reach out for more support and more information. In the meantime, I'm just going to say thank you very much and bye-bye.